Welcome, everybody, to Hot Mic with Houston and Hogan. This week, Dave's been researching a name that may not be familiar. It wasn't to me. Marijohn Wilkin. Let's listen in as Dave tells us who that is and how important she was to country music. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hot Mic with Houston and Hogan. Dave Hogan, how you doing?
Let me tell you about the very rich. They're different from you and me.
Where are you going?
I'm doing.
Where are
I
you
have
going?
a notebook, and when I hear a quote or read a quote, something somebody said, I write it down in this little book. And we're going to be talking about Marijohn Wilkin in just a few minutes. She was called the Den Mother of Music Row, and all the contributions that she made to the music industry. And there are a lot of people like Marijohn Wilkin that maybe the average person would not even know the name, that had such a tremendous impact and influence in Nashville. And we're going to talk about Marijohn.
I'm one of the ones. You have, actually, we got together a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to do this show about Marijohn Wilkin, and you forgot your notes, and we instead did something else. But here we are, and we've talked about Marijohn Wilkin so much, and I've had the opportunity, and I haven't taken it, to look up who is Marijohn Wilkin, but I didn't do it on purpose. I want you to tell us who is Marijohn Wilkin.
I'll tell you who she is in just a moment, but back to that quote. I have a notebook, and I write down things when I run into something I want to try to remember. And that's an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote.
Okay.
From his book, The Rich Boy.
What is that quote again?
Let me tell you about the very rich. They are different from you and me. That's his opening line in one of F. Scott Fitzgerald's books called The Rich Boy. Have you ever known anybody who's really rich?
Who's rich? No.
And they are different from you and me.
That's true. That's very true. I don't recall. I don't think maybe one.
Would Dolly Parton count? I know Dolly.
Well,
would she count?
Absolutely. She just wrote a check for $1 million to the Salvation Army's bell ringing campaign.
What an American treasure. What a world treasure Dolly Parton is. Did you see her show?
Yes.
At halftime in Dallas?
Somewhere around that halftime show is when she stopped to write that check. It was done during that performance.
And that's one of many big checks that Dolly has written. But I think F. Scott Fitzgerald was talking about old money in this book. I haven't read the book, but I've read about it. And I think he's talking about people who have, and I just read the biography of Elon Musk, the world's richest person.
That's big money. Yeah.
Now that's big money. And I love to read biographies. That's my favorite kind of reading. And somebody said one time to me, you like to read biographies. And he said, there were 4 guys got together and wrote a biography of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He said that, and I had never thought of it in that way.
That's right.
So one of my reading projects is going back and reading the biography of Jesus written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But I like to read about people. And I had known about Marijohn Wilkin, going to the disc jockey convention in Nashville for years, back when it was really a DJ convention, and it morphed into fanfare, and I don't know what they call it now. I don't know.
CRS, Country Radio Seminar is what it's called, yeah.
But they started bringing in not just DJs, but fans of country music. And so the DJ convention is not now, and I've been to this seminar, I think once or twice. But back in the days when it was really a DJ convention for country music DJs, you got to talk to just about every country music artist who was prominent at that time. Marijohn Wilkin was one of them that I had a chance to. I didn't really get a one-on-one interview with Marijohn. It was kind of like a press conference where probably a dozen music people, DJs and promoters and so forth, were in a room and asking questions of Marijohn Wilkin because, and the book apparently is out of print. I have not been able to find it, and I don't remember who wrote it, but there was a biography of Marijohn that came out about this time. And that was the purpose of this news conference, was to
Promote the book.
Promote the book. And I learned so much about Marijohn Wilkin. Okay, we have listeners who are probably saying, who are they talking about? Who is Marijohn Wilkin? You probably know the song Long Black Veil.
Yes.
She walks these hills in a long black veil.
Lefty,
Visits my grave when the night winds wail, or something along those lines.
yeah.
Yeah, Lefty Frizzell.
Oh, I thought so, yeah.
And it was a resurgent song for him because Lefty, back in the early 50s, had a tremendous number of hits. And in one of Merle Haggard's songs, he talks about Lefty, and Hank and Lefty were on the jukeboxes because Hank Williams and Lefty Frizzell were the top artists who had music on jukeboxes. Well, Marijohn Wilkin wrote that song, Long Black Veil.
Okay.
She co-wrote it, I think, with Danny Dill. I'm not sure of that, but I believe it was Danny Dill who co-wrote the song with her. And so she not only is a great songwriter, but her life story is really interesting. She was born in Texas, born into a family. They weren't full-time musicians, but her father played the fiddle, and he was kind of a local musician. Had another job,
Had a day gig, yeah.
a lot of people in our community now. These people who are in the music business, but they have a day job, so to speak, as it's called. Don't give up. You know that old expression. Don't give up your day job.
Yes.
So that was her father and her family. And so Marijohn had that kind of upbringing where she was around music, and she became a very accomplished pianist. She went to Hardin-Simmons University, which is a Christian university down in Texas, and then she went to work for Red Foley, which I think probably that was her first professional job. But her life story, separate from the music, she wrote hit songs, and we're going to talk about her biggest hit here in just a moment, a song everybody will know. But she helped a lot of artists. She wound up, after a stint with Red Foley's band, moved to Nashville as basically a songwriter. She started a publishing company. She was instrumental in the career of so many people. She became known as the den mother of Music Row. Kris Kristofferson, Johnny Duncan, Ed Bruce. There's a long list of people that she helped get started in the music business. And Marijohn's had a cousin who was in the Army with Kris Kristofferson. And Kris, of course, was making music on the side while he was in the Army, and had some songs he had written. And the fellow said, "I've got a cousin in Nashville. Why don't you send the songs to her?" And so Kris Kristofferson sent the songs to Marijohn Wilkin. And one of those songs was For the Good Times.
Oh, wow.
Ray Price recorded it.
Oh, and had a hit.
And that started the career of Kris Kristofferson. And as I said, she helped out so many artists get started in country music. And so her life story is what we want to talk about now a little bit. I told you a little bit about her upbringing in Texas. going to college at a Christian university, Hardin-Simmons. But after a while in Nashville, her personal life, began to deteriorate. She fell into deep depression, became an alcoholic, attempted suicide not once, but twice. A friend of hers recommended counseling for her and knew a young minister that did counseling. So Marijohn, after a lot of consideration and after a lot of plotting from her friends to try to get her life back to normal, after a lot of prodding, she went to see this young minister, drove up in a Cadillac and a mink coat, back when Cadillacs were considered the automobile. And, of course, mink coats aren't that popular anymore, but
they were at that time.
She showed up driving a Cadillac wearing a mink coat. And the counselor said, obviously, you're not here to talk about money. You don't have any money problems. And she says, no, I don't have any money problems, but I got a lot of others. And she went into a conversation with the minister, the counselor, about her personal demons, her personal problems. And the counselor said, the minister said, have you ever thought of thanking God for these problems? Thanking God for all these problems? And there's somewhere in the Bible, I don't have written down exactly where, but it says, in effect, I'm sure I'm not quoting it precisely, give God thanks for all things. And she said, why would I give thanks to God for that? And the counselor said, well, you're here, and these problems are going to get you back. You're realizing that you need to get back to God. So she went home after that counseling session and wrote a song called One Day at a Time.
Wow.
One Day at a Time.
Sweet Jesus.
And it became a tremendous hit.
Yeah, still is, really.
And still is. One of the most successful gospel songs ever.
Yeah.
She went back and she wrote that song after this counseling session, but she was having a little problem with the opening to the song. She was unhappy, so she picked up the phone and called Kris Kristofferson and explained to Kris that what she's writing, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. You know, in counseling, they tell you, take life one day at a time.
Yeah.
Don't look too far down the road.
Right.
Get through today.
Yeah.
So she wrote that song, but she wasn't satisfied with the opening. So she called up Kris Kristofferson. And Kris was married to Rita Coolidge at the time. So Kris and Rita went over to Marijohn's house. And Kris took a look at what she had written. And he came up with the opening of the song, which is, I'm only human. I'm just a woman. Remember that opening to that song?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how it goes. But that is about all that Kris Kristofferson wrote. But if you look at the credits, he's listed as one of the writers. And Marijohn Wilkin said the song would not be what it is without Kris Kristofferson. What is that opening line?
One day at a time, sweet Jesus, that's all I'm asking of you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do.
Okay, now, Marijohn wrote that part. Read the opening line of the song.
I'm only human. I'm just a woman. Help me believe in what I could be and all that I am. Oh, show me the stairway that I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time.
Okay, Kris Kristofferson is responsible for that opening.
Okay.
And Marijohn insisted on giving him, co-writer credits
Okay.
for that song. So that song became a big, big song in gospel music. And as a result, Marijohn turned her life around.
Really?
She turned her life completely around, and she, I guess the way demons is a word that's used a lot when you've got a lot of problems. She was able to defeat her demons.
Right.
And get her life straightened out. And she wrote a lot of other good songs after that. One of them, and this is, I think, one of the greatest songs that anybody's ever written in my lifetime. It's a song called I Have Returned.
Oh, Yahweh, I have returned.
Yes.
Yes.
I have returned to the God of my childhood. Now think about this. Everybody knows the story of the prodigal son in the Bible, where the prodigal son returns. Marijohn wrote this song. She's the prodigal child, and she's returning.
I have returned
to her
Father.
God.
Yeah.
The Father. Some of the lyrics go like, I have returned to the God of my childhood, to the same simple faith as a child I once knew. Like a prodigal son, I've longed for my loved ones, for the comfort of home and the God I outgrew. I have returned to the God of my father. I have returned to the God of Abraham, and so forth. A tremendous gospel song.
Yes, it is.
And I think the best version, if anybody listening to this podcast wants to listen to this song, maybe you've never listened to it intently, you can Google it easily.
Oh, yeah.
And find it online. And a lot of people have recorded I Have Returned. But the best version to listen to is Bill Gaither did one of his TV programs, homecoming programs, called Israel Homecoming. And many of the gospel greats of that era, that time, went to Israel, which unfortunately has been in the news in a way that is terrible as we record this, with the war, the war with Hamas and Gaza. But at this time, it was peaceful there, and they went over and recorded the Israel Homecoming. And in that Israel Homecoming, you have the Gaithers and so many of the other great gospel singers, and it's like a congregational sing of I Have Returned.
Oh, I bet that was powerful.
Just Google Bill Gaither, Israel Homecoming.
I will.
And it'll come up.
I will.
And listen to the song that Marijohn Wilkin wrote called I Have Returned. And I want to return to early in Marijohn's career in Nashville. And I mentioned The Long Black Veil, which she co-wrote with Danny Dill, that became a hit for Lefty Frizzell, revived his career. Unfortunately, Lefty was dealing and dealt with a lot of demons in his lifetime, and that was probably the last really big hit that Lefty Frizzell had. Another song that Marijohn co-wrote with John D. Loudermilk, that everybody probably will remember who knows anything about country music, is a song called Waterloo, recorded by Stonewall Jackson. It was a #1 hit. Made the top 10 in the pop field. Waterloo, written by Marijohn Wilkin and John D. Loudermilk.
I didn't realize that she wrote that or co-wrote that. That was a tremendous hit song. I was watching the Marty Stewart show not long ago, and Stonewall Jackson was a guest, and he did that song.
Waterloo.
Yeah. Where have you, Waterloo? I have met my Waterloo. Yeah.
Everybody meets their Waterloo. Everybody. She also wrote a song called Cut Across Shorty.
Nat Stuckey did that song.
Yeah. Eddie Cochran did it in the pop world. A song called "I Just Don't Understand," which became a pop hit for Anne Margaret and was covered by the Beatles. And I'll bet Marijohn made some change on that when the Beatles recorded that song. I Just Don't Understand.
I bet.
But although primarily a country songwriter, her songs have been recorded by people like Rod Stewart, Mick Jagger. She also formed a publishing company named after her son Bucky, called Buckhorn Music. And Bucky is quite a great guitar player, frontman. He fronted a group, you may remember this, Randy, from the 1960s and 70s, Ronnie and the Daytonas.
I remember that group, yes.
And in 1964, they had a big hit called GTO.
I was trying to pull that out. Yes, I remember.
Well, Bucky Wilkin, son of Marijohn, there was no Ronnie. He used that alias, that pseudonym, in I don't know why, but in his music career. Ronnie and the Daytonas. Ronnie was Marijohn Wilkin's son, Bucky, and Bucky's played a lot of sessions, and in addition to having a band for quite a while. So that's a little history of, and Leanne Rimes. Remember when Leanne Rimes hit real big? Marijohn Wilkin's publishing company published most of the music recorded by Leanne Rimes. So here's somebody that, you know, if you go to, let's say, Chick-fil-A, you know, the cars are lined up going through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
We've all seen that. And if you went car to car and car to car and asked, you know who Johnny Cash is? Everybody would know Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people like Marijohn Wilkin. If you say, do you know who Marijohn Wilkin is? They'd have no idea. So from time to time, as we do these podcasts and talk about music, I like to remember and salute some of the people.
I do too.
That had an influence and made a tremendous impact that people have no idea who is. They don't know who the Den of Music Row is. Marijohn Wilkin.
Well, I appreciate you doing the research on Marijohn Wilkin, and I appreciate the fact that you got to sit in the same room with her at one time and ask questions. I can imagine that was quite interesting. Like you said, a press conference of sort, people asking questions about her music and her life.
One Day at a Time, often considered the biggest gospel song of the decade in the 1970s. She wrote the song, though, in the 1960s. But in the 70s, I think it was right about 70 or 71, is when Christy Lane recorded One Day at a Time, and it became that tremendous hit. I'm sorry, it was the late 70s when she recorded it, but it had been recorded by a few people before that. But Christy Lane's recording
really took off.
Became listed as one of the top 50 Southern gospel songs.
And then so many other people covered it, and thereafter, I remember so many different artists. I remember in the Southern gospel field, a group called the Thrasher Brothers.
Yes, the Thrasher Brothers had a great recording.
Yes,
of One Day at a Time that people will.
Tennessee Ernie Ford. Tennessee Ernie Ford covered it, and there was no better, greater voice in the world than the Tennessee Ernie Ford.
He messed up a word in that song in his recording, and I can't think of what it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he in the song, Marijohn Wilkin mentions something about it's worse now.
It's when you walked among men, well, Jesus, you know, if you're looking below, that it's worse now than then. Oh, there's pushing and shoving, and it's crowding my mind.
Mm-hmm. But somewhere, and I'll have to look it up, but in Tennessee Ernie Ford's recording, he missed a word said a word that wasn't in the song.
Really?
But it didn't really affect the message of the song.
I've played it many times and never caught what you're talking about. He covered it up well, didn't he?
Are we about out of time?
We're about gone. And you want to promote the next show coming up, or
why don't we talk about Hank Williams?
I think that's a grand idea.
As we record this, the year 2023 is the 70th anniversary of Hank Williams' death. And as we record this, we're approaching January the 1st, when Hank Williams died at the age of 29. So why don't we talk a little bit about Hank Williams, talk about that last ride, as it's called. Hank Williams going from Montgomery, Alabama, up to Oak Hill, Virginia, where he was found dead in the back of his Cadillac. Let's talk about that a little bit when we come back.
I can't wait.
Next time.
Thank y'all for joining us on Hot Mic with Houston and Hogan. Y'all need to know how much we enjoy getting together and talking these old stories. We've got plenty of them. So thank y'all so much for tuning in to Hot Mic with Houston and Hogan.
Be sure to click the subscribe button for another episode of Hot Mic with Randy Houston and Dave Hogan.